Hey everybody, my name is James Shepard, and this is a demo of our brand new Instant Quote Tool version 2. This one we're calling it version 2. We obviously had quite a few upgrades on the last one, but this one is a completely different build process. We built this one from scratch. Took about, I guess it took about 7 or 8 months. And so we basically took the tool that we had previously created and gutted it, started from scratch, and created a much improved platform that we intend to add some additional functionality to. So as with the initial version that we did, this tool serves to solve two problems for both individual users and for ISOs. And so I'm going to walk you through both of those solutions today and kind of explain a little bit about what it does. So the first problem it was designed to solve was the problem of training so that you would learn the merchant industry better. So it's actually hard to believe that when we started out, we had only 8 courses in our system. If you click on courses now, you are going to find, I believe we now have 30 video courses loaded up here. If not, it's pretty close, and we're adding a few more, I believe, this next week. So, we've really kind of come full circle on this, and we've decided to try to become more of a Netflix of merchant services by adding a lot of additional content. Now, in a little bit, I'll show you as an ISO how you would be able to go in and actually assign courses to users. So that's a huge improvement over what we had before. But even just the design here, I'll show you, is really much improved. Just a much better user interface, both on mobile and desktop, where you can actually go through and go to each of these lessons and complete a course here. So we now have a lot more courses. They're all organized here in courses as they were before. A couple of other little things that we've added. We do have the concept up here now of fuzzy search. So let's say I want to search for statement analysis videos. So I would just go statement, and as soon as you start typing, it's going to give you these two, how to read a processing statement and advanced statement analysis. Maybe you wanted to overcome objections. Start typing that. You're going to find overcoming common objections. So we have fuzzy search. The other thing that we have not actually added it here at this point, but you'll see it when you actually log into the tool, and that is the labels. So right now they're all under miscellaneous, or rather I should say categories. So we're going to add categories here, and so that'll also make it a little easier, so you can just click on a certain category if you're looking to learn a certain thing. So that's the courses. So I'm not going to dive in too much deeper to that. We didn't really add an enormous amount of new functionality there. Primarily, we just cleaned up the view and made it more user-centric so that you'll be able to use that better when you're trying to get trained in merchant services. And again, if you're an ISO, you would have this branded experience, and you'd be able to assign the courses to an individual user, which again is a really big improvement over what we had before. So let's go back to our prospects here, which kind of serves as the home page. The second thing you're going to notice here is that we wanted to solve the problem of how do we create a proposal for a merchant where we at least don't have to get the statement right up front. We can do a really quick proposal. I am very proud of what we have created here. Dramatically improved over what we had previously done. And so I'm going to show it to you. So what I want to show you now is the 3 ways that you can create a quote using the new version of the tool. The first way that you can create it is simply by clicking on quote. Okay, and you don't have to create a prospect first. You can just go to quote. And so if we're on mobile, this is going to look great on mobile. We start by choosing the business type. So we have them nicely set up here into auto, restaurant, retail, and services. So let's choose a quick service restaurant. Then we put in our total volume here. So let's say they do 10,000. A couple things that you'll notice that we added. I just typed out 10,000 and hit tab. And 2 things you'll notice right off the bat. First of all, we added the commas here. And that's all formatted nicely. So that just makes it a lot easier to be able to read the numbers, especially when you're on mobile. Second thing that we added is right down here where it says your average industry fees. Now, this will show you a couple of things. First of all, it shows you how fast our new algorithm is that runs Interchange in the background. So we were able to, while you were filling out this form, reach out, calculate interchange using our algorithm, add some basis points of markup. I believe this adds about 80 basis points of markup and a few other various fees. And it just comes up with a number. Now, this number is not based on your programs or anything like that. This is just an industry average based on the statements that we have in our database. So right off the bat, you could tell the merchant, like imagine you're standing in front of a merchant and they said, well, I'm a pizza shop and I do about 10,000 in volume, or you're on the phone with them. You'd be able to say, well, I can tell you from our database of statements, the average you would pay would be about $286.23. Do you know if you're paying around that, or kind of is that close to your average? So even without getting a statement or doing a proposal right off the bat, you can know what the average fees are, and there's just so many different ways to use that in the sales presentation. Next, you can choose to put in the number of transactions if you know what it is, or you leave the average ticket here. If you put in the number of transactions, say 256 transactions in a tab, well, of course, that's going to change the average ticket size. And so those two are going to, once you put the number of transactions in, the average ticket size is going to be locked and you can't do anything with it because you've now put in the number of transactions, and of course, volume divided by transactions is average ticket size. Lastly, you have the total fees, which are optional as they have always been in the past. So let's say we put in that they're paying $342. Then we click on create. And we are now here at our proposal screen. Now, from the screen, there's a couple things that we can do here. We can actually click on PDF, just as we could before, to create a beautiful PDF document. I'll kind of show you where this information is coming from up here, and some other things that you can do to customize this proposal a little bit more. So we can do PDF. We can do edit proposal, which I'll spend quite a bit of time on that in a minute. And then we can do send via email. So send via email is a great new feature that we added. So right here, this is actually probably the most requested feature that we had, other than branding. And, the reason is because, it's kind of frustrating to try to download the PDF. Then you have to download it to your phone and save it. Then you got to pull up your email app, and then you have to, so it's kind of annoying. Now you don't have to do that anymore. Just email it to the merchant. So you can put I'll put James at ccsalesforce.com. You can just put something in here. You can change the subject line to whatever you want. So if you leave it alone, it's going to say your merchant services quote, or you could say RE, visit today. And then you can also change the message to be anything that you want. Directly below the message is going to be the link for the proposal. So I'm going to go ahead and click on send, and then we'll take a look in a minute to see what that actually did. Okay, but we created a proposal, and we can see we have monthly, annual, and 3-year savings, just like before. Merchant activity, processing fees. Now, one of the great things about this is that we've made this completely mobile responsive. Everything that you can do in this new version will work perfectly on a phone screen. And that was one of the constraints I put in place where I said, look, when we develop this new system, we are developing it for a phone. That's it. So does it work on a desktop? Absolutely. It works beautiful on a desktop. It works beautifully on a tablet. But we developed it for a phone. Okay? So you can use every screen with a phone and it looks incredible. All right? So that's the first way that you can create a proposal or a quote. What's the second way that you can create a quote? Well, let's go back to our prospects and take a look at something. You'll notice here that by creating that quote, we have created a new prospect here. And if we click on the details, we can see the volume and we can see the timestamp. This was made at 4:07 p.m. our time on July 20th on Friday. So, what happened, the other thing our users were telling us is that, they love the tool. They'd used it in front of a merchant, but number one, they didn't want to have to put all the contact information in there when they're standing in front of the merchant. And they wanted to just be able to do a quote instantly. So now you can do that by clicking on quote, but then they do want to be able to go back and save the information. So now you just click on edit, and now you could go here and you could go ahead and put in the actual name and say this is, Bill's Hardware Store. And you can put all the other information in here like that. The stages we still have, the source type, and then save. And then, of course, here we also cleaned up our tasks a little bit, added a really nice date picker, so you can put a task in there, and you can also add comments or notes right here. But the second way that you can actually create a quote is from a prospect. So if you created a new prospect, you could just click on New Quote. And now it will skip the business type selection because, show you here, when you create a new prospect, one of the things you have to do, so let's say this is Tony's Pizza Shack, you select the business type right here from a drop down. So it already has the business type, and then you can click Save, and then you click on New Quote, and now you're going through the same process. However, this time, I want to show you the detail form, okay? So this is the other huge improvement that we made to the tool. Before, the process of performing a quote for someone, creating a quote, was different if you had a statement versus if you didn't have a statement. And that is where most of the confusion came from. Whenever we would get support requests, it was usually having something to do with that. James, I put in $10,000, but then I got the merchant statement and I see their volume is different. And now I want to edit it, or I want to adjust it, or I want to make a new quote. How do I do that? And it was very confusing. All you have to do now is click on Advanced Mode. And you can toggle back and forth. Again, both of these forms work perfectly on mobile. You just go from Simple Mode to Advanced Mode. Okay? So imagine here we can actually put in the information. Let's say that they do, 6,000 whatever in Visa with 100 transactions, and they do, we'll just put some numbers in here real quick, and let's say like this. So now we have a merchant that has 11,144 in total volume, 200 transactions. Then you can change the number of batches if you want, and then down here we can put in our actual fees. So you can see we can do it this way, or we can do the simple mode, either one, and you just toggle back and forth between them. Much, much better. Click on Create, and here we are back at the exact same form. Now, before I show you the third way that you can create a proposal or a quote, I want to talk about what's happening behind the scenes. So if we click on Edit Proposal here, now we have some different options. We can compare programs. I'm not going to do that right now because we're going to talk about programs in a second. But I want to click on the interchange details here. So notice, and this is, by the way, the other big improvement we're going to talk about in a minute, but notice the interchange here, 144.21, and it says estimated next to it. That tells you that number is from us. That's not from you. That's from us. That's our algorithm making an estimated guess about the interchange. As you know, our algorithm is the most accurate in the industry by far, in my opinion, and from the proposals I've seen from our competitors, I can say that with some confidence. But it's very, very accurate. We'll click on details to see why. The reason is because we actually create an interchange table from scratch. So we're not just pulling a number out of thin air or using an effective rate for interchange. We are actually going into our database of thousands of statements, finding those that are similar to this business type, and creating an interchange table from scratch for this specific business with this business's average ticket size and everything that varies. And so this is extremely important to understand that we are doing this in the right way, basically. So that's really important. But here's the other thing that's really interesting. So we've now made it to where there is always an interchange table there. Okay, so even if you make it a change, so watch this. What if we want to change the interchange amount? Okay, well, what we would do is we would click on Edit here in the Merchant Activity. And let's say we have a statement, we're looking at the statement, and our algorithm is saying interchange should be 144.21, but the statement actually has interchange at 163.25. Well, all we have to do is click here and say, 163.25, or what did I say, 153.25, whatever it is. Click Update. Now, that's going to do two things. Number one, it's going to update the interchange number here and remove the word estimated. So you now know, okay, this proposal, I actually put in what the interchange amount is. So that's an accurate interchange amount for sure because I entered it right from the statement. The second thing, though, and just as interesting if we click on details here, it has now actually updated the interchange table and an algorithm ran again, and it created the most statistically probable interchange table to match the number 153.25. Now, for those of you that are maybe newer to the industry, you may say, why on earth is that important? It is crucially important. The main reason is because our solution now for ISOs, it now supports tier pricing. So we can now do a tier pricing map. We still don't have that for individual users simply because we don't have a map, a tier map. What one processor might have one transaction be mid-qualified, another processor might consider that non-qualified. So we do have to work with the ISO to get the map correct, but you can now do things like take tier to interchange plus to tier, and actually compare apples to apples because we always have an interchange table. Also, even if you're doing flat rate pricing or cash discounting, which we now support, you can now check your compensation, and you know that your compensation is correct. Why? Because we know what the interchange is, and we always have an accurate, up-to-date interchange table. Okay? So those are a few things that we now have. Now I want to show you lastly here the third way that you can now create a quote. This one will really blow you away. So let's go ahead and click on Profile here. Notice right here we have our instant quote URL. Okay? Now this is one reason why you want to sign up sooner rather than later, is to get your instant quote URL. And so this comes off of my username. And so I can click on Edit, and I can change this. It's going to make sure that this is available if I try to change it. But what this does is this actually creates a public URL. Okay, a public URL. So let's take a look at that. So let's copy this for a second. And let's imagine that you actually just wanted a merchant to get their own quote, or you want to put a link on your website that says get a quote, or you wanted to do a Facebook marketing campaign and you wanted to use a link and say get your instant quote now. So what if you want the merchant to get the quote? Okay, well, let me log out. Okay, we're now logged out. Let's go to that URL that I created there, instantquotetool.com/James. And look what we have. Okay, we have nothing up here in the nav bar, but this is what a merchant would see. So we click on, let's say, full service restaurant here. Put in their information. Again, they could do the advanced mode or simple mode, same as before. Put in their fees. They click on create. Okay, and this is what they see. Now, again, they can't edit the proposal or anything like that, but they could click on PDF. And they can still get their own PDF proposal. It's got your information on it. Again, if you're an ISO, it would be branded for you. So they can create a public URL. And by the way, there is a unique URL for each user, not each ISO. So even if you're an individual user, you get a link, your own public URL. If you're an ISO, you'd have a custom domain, so it would be yourcompany.com/James, right? And so each of your users will have a branded public URL that they can use. So it's really, really slick. Now, let me sign back in real quick here. So the one question you might be asking yourself is, James, all this time you've been running quotes and it's been giving us, proposed pricing. Where is that proposed pricing coming from? Well, it's a great question. So first of all, it's coming from the programs, just like we had in there before, but let me run through that real quick. If we go to our profile, notice here we can also edit our proposal contact information here. But if we click on Manage Programs, you will see that programs are now, so a program, for those of you that haven't used our tool in the past, a program has a pricing template. It also has Schedule A information, okay? So Schedule A information is what allows us to calculate your residuals. So the programs are the only, I always tell our users, programs are the only complicated part of our software. You really do have to understand credit card processing to build a program, and that's why our support team will do that for you. So reach out to our support team. I'll show you the support link in a second, which we've improved significantly, and you can reach out to them and they can help you out. But the thing I want to show you that you're going to want to do as a user is, okay, we create 2 or 3 programs for you. Well, what you can do here is you can actually decrease or increase the priority of that program. What does that mean? Well, when someone goes to your public URL, or when you try to create a quote, our system is going to try to use the first program here. Then if that one doesn't qualify, it's going to try to use the next one. Then it's going to try to use the next one. So let's say I actually wanted this demo to show up instead of this flat rate program every time. I would just click up here, and now the demo is at the top. So you can put programs in here and say, this is the one that I want to always show up. Okay? Now, the next thing that I want to show you here, so we kind of went through the 3 ways to create a quote. The next thing I want to show you is the programs. Now, again, before I get into this part, whether you're an ISO or an individual user, I always say this when I talk about programs. They are complicated. It's not, the easiest thing to set up. We've tried to make it as user-friendly as possible, but we need to make sure it has a lot of functionality. And so this is why we don't charge anything extra, no matter what plan you're on. We will create all of your programs for you. Send us your Schedule A information, work with us, we'll create your programs. But I do want to show you how we create them first, just because there's some really amazing new functionality that you're going to absolutely love when you're creating programs or when you're asking us to create them for you. So let's click on a new program. So we start here by naming the processor. So let's say this is the XYZ processor. And by the way, as I'm showing you all this, again, if you're an ISO, you have complete control over your programs. You can create different programs for different users. You assign them to the users, and the users don't have the ability to edit the programs. But if you're an individual user, you would see what I'm seeing here. So let's make a new program. Let's actually make a cash discounting program. So this will serve a couple purposes. I can show you how we now support cash discounting and also show you some cool new stuff. And then let's say the residual split that we get on this program is 40%. Now down here we have our minimum and maximum volume. This is where it says, I want this program to show up for merchants that do 3,000 to 10,000 in volume or something like that. So this will limit what that program shows up for. I'm just going to put 0 and unlimited and hit save. So this will show up for every merchant that comes through. So by default, we will go ahead and put some Interchange Plus kind of default things here, okay? So that's what we put in here by default. Now, what are some of the other things that we can do here? So let's leave it as an Interchange Plus program for just a second, and I'm going to show you some of the new things that you can do. So probably the biggest area of improvement, in my opinion, with programs, other than being able to support different pricing types, structures, is that we now have conditional pricing fields. So you'll notice here we have VMD volume at 25 basis points, and we have our cost, and we have our minimum at 10 basis points. Well, what if we actually would want to price somebody a little higher if they were below 10,000, and we want to price somebody a little lower if they're above 30,000, let's say. So really, we actually want to have 3 different levels. We want to have a kind of a low volume, a medium volume, and a high volume pricing. In the old system, you would have to create 3 programs. You'd have to clone the same program 3 times. Well, I realized that would create a couple of problems. Number one, it's not very clean and we don't really want to do that. But now that you have a public URL, you're going to want to send merchants to this program. You're going to want to have a highly rated program that, the highest priority one, and you're going to want all merchants to go there. So our system is going to have to recognize what kind of volume do they do and adjust the pricing accordingly. So our system can now do that. We can literally adjust for any conditional you could imagine, number of transactions, volume, anything like that. So let's click on this real quick, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we are going to actually take and make this one conditional. So let's click on details here, and let's create a new merchant activity condition. And let's say that the Visa MasterCard Discover volume for this one needs to be, let's say it needs to be greater than $10,000. Save. There's now a conditional. This fee is only going to show up if the volume on Visa, MasterCard, and Discover is greater than $10,000. Okay? Now, let's say that we now wanted to create, something different for when it's $10,000 or less, okay? So for that, what we would do is we would go back here to our program. We would create a new fee, And we're going to call this the low volume pricing here. This is the Visa MasterCard Discover volume down here. And we're going to price it at 40 basis points. Still those 10 basis points of cost here. And we'll put the minimum at 40. So it has to be 40. The maximum, we'll leave it at infinity. So we can make it higher if we want, but we can't go any lower than that. So let's save it. Now we have our low volume right here. We click on Details. And we're going to add a new merchant activity condition. And we're going to say this is for when the Visa MasterCard Discover volume is less than or equal to $10,000. Save. So going back to our cash discounting program, and again, let me just edit the name real quick because that's actually going to bother me. We're going to call this the Interchange Plus New, since we're not really doing a cash discount program yet here. And click on Details. Whoops, wrong one. Okay, so you can see that we now have the VMD volume 25 basis points, but then we also have low volume, and we've set it up so that only one of those will show up depending on the merchant volume. Now, I'm not going to go through and show you, but you could do the same thing with the per item fees. You could do the same thing with the Amex volume. That's how, for instance, if you go down to the PIN debit monthly fee here, that one is conditional on PIN debit volume being greater than 0. So you can make fees that only show up based on that. So again, this is not a deep dive into programs. I have videos on our support page that will give you a much deeper dive into this. But I now wanted to show you one other feature real quick, and then we're going to make a program that is a cash discounting program. So let's click on Programs here. Let's go ahead and elevate this Interchange Plus New, because we want this to show up whenever a merchant actually gets our public quote here, okay? So let's click on Details. I want to add one other thing. So the other thing that we had a problem with our old program structure was, there's a lot of conditional features or program features and benefits that you might offer. For instance, you might offer Clover, but you don't give that to every merchant. Just some merchants get Clover. Some merchants get Authorize.net. Some merchants get a lease on a VX520. Some of them get a free VX520. Whatever. So you're going to have all these different things. So again, in the old system, you'd have to create a new program for each of those variations. Now you don't. Now you can create something called a new feature down here. So these are program features. Click on a new feature. And let's actually add a Clover POS feature here. So we're going to save it. Now we're going to go back here to our Interchange Plus New program. Let's create a new fee. And let's call this fee the Clover software fee. There we go. So this is going to be a monthly fee. So you can see all the different fee types you can create. It's going to be a new monthly fee. Let's say it's going to be $29. And there's a cost of maybe $19. It has to be $29. So it can't be any higher or any lower. We save that. Now the problem is, by doing it the way I just did it, this is always going to show up. Well, we don't want it to always show up, do we? Now what we want to do is click on the details here and add a new program feature condition. And we have a drop down, and we've only created one program feature, which is Clover POS, so we'll use that. And we click on Save. Now we have this Clover POS feature here. So let's take a look. So let's go back to our quote here. Let's create a new quote with a quick service restaurant that does, let's say, $11,000 in volume. Let's say paying, $368 in fees. Click on Create. Now, the first thing I want you to notice here is that this is using the VMD volume, okay? Now, watch this. If we went back and we put this at 9,000, change this, let's say it's 340, click Create. Because we took our volume below 10,000, now it's using low volume, 40 basis points. See that? So that's the conditional we created earlier based on the activity, the volume of the merchant. Just like if we added PIN debit volume, we'd also see the monthly PIN debit fee there. So that's that conditional. But if we click on Edit Proposal, we can also now go down here and select a program feature. We could say, okay, how about Clover POS? We are going to give them a Clover POS. And again, you could have 15 different features. You could have authorized.net, you could have micros integration, you could have gateways, whatever it is. Click update. Now, when we look at our program here, and we go down a little bit, we now see in this soft gray color here, two different conditional fees. We have the low volume fee, and so when we're editing the proposal, we can actually see the conditional. Why did this low volume one show up? Because the Visa MasterCard Discover volume is less than or equal to 10,000. Why is this Clover POS software $29 fee there? Because of the Clover POS conditional. Okay, so we can do our conditionals based off of either merchant activity or based off of program features. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to do on this, and then I'm going to show a little bit of the branding and the ISO side real quick. The last thing I want to do real quick is just show you how to make a cash discounting version here. So let's go back for a second. We're going to click on Profile, Manage Programs, and we're going to go ahead and click on this flat rate program here. And I'm going to clone this one. So we're going to start with this flat rate, and we're going to clone it. And we're going to actually call this one the cash discounting option here, and click Save. So let's go down and hit the details there. So you'll notice here that this flat rate one, it does have Visa MasterCard Discover volume of 295 basis points. So what I'm actually going to do here, though, is I'm going to actually, you know what? Let me go back for 1 second. Let's do this a little bit differently. We're actually going to go to the Interchange Plus new here, and we're going to clone this one instead, because I actually want to show you how I think it'll make more sense actually if I do it this way, to convert an Interchange Plus over to show you how cash discounting actually works. So let's go down here. So bear with me. I'm just going to talk you through this. I'm going to convert this into a cash discount. In order to make a cash discounting program, step one is to create a true flat rate pricing program. We start by deleting all of these fields up here that are kind of the standard per item and volume fields. And again, just bear with me here as I go through and do that. All right. So now what we can do here is we can go through and we can actually make a new fee. And let's say we want to do cash discounting where it's a 3.99% cash discount. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a true flat rate pricing at 3.99%. So let's go down here to Visa MasterCard Discover volume here. 399, so we're going to do 399. We're going to put our cost in here. Let's say we have a cost of 5 basis points. Now, sometimes what will happen is you'll actually put a cost in here of 0, and you can create separate categories for each of these just to put the cost in. But I'm not going to do that with this one. I'm trying to do kind of a simplified version of it. Okay, we're going to put our minimum amount. Let's say we can't go below 329, and we can't go above 399. And save it. Okay, next step is to go down here to all of our costs right here, and we need to take these three, especially the interchange, debit network access fees, and Amex OptBlue, and we're going to pass 0% of that through to the merchant, but we're still going to leave the cost in there. So in other words, if I have a merchant doing 10,000 in volume and I do a 3.99% flat rate pricing, I'm not going to charge the merchant interchange on top of that, right? But that interchange is still going to affect my residuals. So let me make that change real quick. So we change the default amount to 0. The minimum 0, maximum 0, but we still have the 100% cost. So that means 100% of interchange is going to pass through. Now, one reason we did it this way is because some processors still pass through maybe 5% of interchange. They still pass through some of the rewards and things like that. Well, then there you go. You can do that. You can just do 5%. Okay, let's change these all to zeros here. Now, the next question is, are they still paying the network, the dues and assessments to the card networks? Some processors cover that with the money they collect. Some do not. In this case, I'm going to leave it there just for time, but usually I would go through and zero this, this, and this out just like I did up here, leaving the cost because, again, that cost is still going to affect your residuals. Cost is just about your residuals. Now, the only other question is, what other monthly fees are there? And again, a lot of it might be features. Like here we have, you can do a Clover POS or, maybe as a terminal lease or whatever it is. So you can add those as, features down here, but we're not going to do that today. So we now have a flat rate priced merchant, okay? What's the last step? The last step is to now add the service fee, okay? So a service fee, all it is it's a negative category. It has no cost. It's just has nothing really to do with credit card processing other than it's wiping out some of the merchant fees. So I call it a consumer service fee. We go down here and again select Visa, MasterCard, Discover, PIN Debit, Volume, right? And then we put the default in at negative $399, cost negative $399, the minimum amount negative $399, and the maximum amount negative $329. Again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because we can build these programs for you. I'm just trying to show you broad functionality today. So this is still giving us that range of $329 to $399, but this is the customer service or the consumer service fee that offsets the flat rate pricing. Okay, let's save that. Now let's actually go in and see what this looks like when we go to run a quote. So again, we'll do our quick service restaurant here. We'll do $10,000 in volume, $350 in fees. Now again, our default is that interchange new that we created, so we'd have to click Edit Proposal, Compare Programs. Now if we scroll down here, we can see our savings, residuals, so that's the interchange plus new. If we go down to the cash discounting, what do we got here? $310 a month in savings. Wow. Yeah, that's cash discounting, right? Residuals, $98. Now again, I think we had that at a 40% split. Their fees, what are they going to pay? They're going to pay $39.33. Okay. VMD volume fees, 0. VMD per item fees, 0. Why? Well, I'll show you. When we choose it, you're going to see why. Let's go down here to our merchant activity here, our proposed fees. You can see that the $390, I actually named it $399. That's funny. I should have named that the volume fee there, but the volume fee here is $399, and we collected $399 from the consumer service fee. So they completely offset each other. So all they're paying for is just these two $10 fees plus the dues and assessments. If we clicked edit here, we could still add the Clover POS in, which of course we really wouldn't do on cash discounting, but that would now take the fees up to, let's see here. Oh, we didn't actually add the fee in on this one, so that one actually wouldn't work. But at any rate, you can kind of see how the cash discounting side of it works. And if we just got rid of the consumer service fee, we would have true flat rate pricing. So hopefully that'll give you a little bit of an idea of the programs and how they work. Very quickly here, I'm just going to go into a different system, and I'm going to show you a little bit of information here on, whoops, that's the wrong one. I'm going to show you a little bit of the information on how the ISOs work here. So very briefly, let me just talk about, let's actually go here to this one. There we go. So let me just talk very briefly about our ISO package. So we have 3 different packages now in terms of pricing. The first package is the one we've always had, $29 a month per user, 30-day free trial. Just go to instantquotetool.com and sign up. So instantquotetool.com, click on start your free trial, and you start your free trial. Option number 2 though, we now have 2 ISO packages. The first one, $199 a month, allows you to brand the tool, okay, which let's go ahead and log in here. So when I say brand the tool, we can click on admin. We can now click on change colors, or we can click on change logos. Okay, so we can now brand it. All right. Second thing that we can do is for $199 a month, we can set a custom domain up. Now we set that up for you. It's a process on our end, but we can host this solution at your domain. It doesn't have to be at a subdomain. It could be at your own full domain name. So, yourcompany.com. Thirdly, you can have 25 users using the system. So we designed this for the smaller ISO that's got between, 3 or 4 all the way up to 25 users. So up to 25 users, you can put in there for $199, okay, which is really nice. So that way, if you have a little bit of turnover, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Then, next thing you can do, you can manage your proposal introduction. Now, this is a pretty cool little feature here. So this is where you can actually put things like videos, images, text, whatever you want. When people go to see the proposals that your reps are sharing, you can customize that experience a little bit. Okay? And then lastly here is you can also manage programs and manage courses. So again, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail there. It's pretty obvious. You can make a program with, say, one rep has one residual split, one has another. You can manage those two things, okay? Last package I'll talk about, and then we'll be done. I'll take some questions. We also have an enterprise package. The enterprise package has everything that you see here, plus it has group management. So group management means you can have, your inside sales team, your outside sales team, or maybe you have, 5 different team leaders, they can all go in and just see their team. And so they have team, group management, group your users together. The other thing you get for the $695 is you get unlimited users. So you can literally have, 5,000 users. It doesn't matter. It's $695 a month. So unlimited users, okay? They're all going to have access to the courses and the programs and all of that. All right. And lastly, you get our 20-day Jumpstart program. So our 20-day Jumpstart program is our most complete training. It comes with a workbook and 20 days worth of content that we drip market to your new reps. And we will brand it and customize it for you. So that actually takes some time. Usually about 30 days we work with you to set all that up. But that is the enterprise solution. Well, I'm really excited about the new tool. I hope that you really enjoy using it.